Good evening. Going up in Best tonight. Winds died down a bit. It's going to be a nice evening. Maybe we'll catch the sunset if we're lucky. We'll record part 2 of how to buy an airplane. This one is reviewing your mission and kind of adding to that your preferences to come up with the aircraft type or types that will fit your mission and what you want. If you like what I'm doing with this series, hit subscribe so that you're notified when the next videos come out. I think it'll be about 5 videos long, and I appreciate those subscriptions. We're just over 800 right now. I'd really like to get to 1,000. I think that'd be pretty cool. So we'll hop in Bess and get her fired up, and I'll see you in the air.
All right, welcome to the airplane. We're down here in the run-up area. Go ahead and do our checklist. Controls are free and correct. Our instruments are set to field altitude. Oil temperature's already about 125. Oil pressure is 140. Oil pressure is 40. Gas. Fuel is on. Carb heat is off. Primer's locked. Hey, is airplane stuff. Trim is set for takeoff. Door is latched. Seat belts are latched front and back to stay out of my way. Cargo is secure. And finally run up. Go to 1500 RPM. The left mag is about a 70 RPM drop. Right mag is about a 50 RPM drop or so. Carb heat's about a 25 RPM drop. That all looks good. Oil temperature and oil pressure still look great. Let's see if we got full power. Yeah, we got about 2150. We got just a little bit of wind out of the south, probably 4 or 5 knots, southeast. Density altitude still around 3,000 foot today, so flying performance isn't going to be great. We're relatively light, so we shouldn't have any trouble. We're way back here by what used to be the corn plot before it was harvested, so we got a good run on the runway here. So let's get out of here. And we're rolling. Gonna go over the gravel driveway. Slight right turn to the runway. Airspeed's live. Tails up. There's 40. Let her fly. Ground effect till 50. There's 50. Climb out at VX. Oh yeah, our performance is pretty good tonight actually. We're over the obstacles. We can accelerate to VY at 60. Do a slight left. In case we lose an engine, we're on in power transmission lines. And we're above the glide path that would hit the transmission lines, so we can go back to the right. Still climbing out at 60. Alright, part 2 of how to buy an airplane. This is kind of where we start talking about, we shift from what we need to have based off of our mission to kind of what we want, and we use the needs and the wants to kind of come up with some ideas on what airframe types we should be looking for. So yeah, in part 1 we talked about the mission. The mission is what we need, so now let's go on and talk about what maybe you want out of that airplane. The creature comforts, the airframe configurations, things like that. This would be a good time to maybe bring in your significant other and see what they would like as well. And I'm talking about things like, do you want a high wing or do you want a low wing? Is retractable gear as a complex airplane okay? Or do you want to stay with the simplicity of a fixed gear airplane for both insurance and maintenance aspects? Your engine, do you want a 4-cylinder? Are you okay with a 6-cylinder? Do you have a preference there? No. Depending on your engine, your airframe's going to change for your mission. For example, a Mooney and a Bonanza have relatively similar performance. The Bonanza drinks a little bit more fuel and is a little bit more comfortable, depending on, your body type. Do you want a Lycoming or a Continental? Do you have a preference? A single engine or twin engine? But what are your preferences there? Are you okay with an experimental airplane, or do you want to stick with something that is type certified? So these are just a few things. There's a lot of others. You know, what color do you want? Things like that. But of course, color and things like that don't really have an impact on the aircraft type you choose. So that'll have an impact, you know, in part 3 when you're actually searching for the specific airplane that you're gonna maybe put under contract and do a pre-buy inspection on. So once you kind of know what you want, you know your mission, you know what you need. For example, our sample case mission is 4 200-pound adults, 150 pounds of baggage, a 500 nautical mile trip at 160 knots. That's the mission. Then you're going to add on top what you want. You know, I want a low wing, I want it a 6-cylinder engine, I want retractable gear, things like that. You're gonna start looking into that. And then start researching. Use you know, Google, of course, Trade a Plane, Craigslist, Facebook. There's several Facebook groups now. Barnstormer. So you can use all of these online research tools and just kind of find some airplanes that you kind of like based off of what you need and what you want. And then use Google or other resources to determine if those airplanes that you kind of like meet your mission. Meaning they go as fast as you want, they'll carry as much as you want, etc. And once you find a type that you're kind of considering, be sure that it fits your mission. For example, just because an airplane has 4 seats doesn't mean you can put 4 adults in it and still be able to fly anywhere. For example, you know, mid-60s 172, Cessna 172 typically has a useful load around 800 pounds. So if you want to put 4 adults on that airplane, you're probably not putting any fuel, or at least very little fuel. So take a look at the useful load, make sure it's got enough useful load to where you can put, you know, your 3 or 4 hours of fuel, whatever you need for your mission, plus an hour or so of reserve fuel, and still have enough weight remaining to get you to your destination. I think weight is probably one of the most misunderstood things when it comes to new aircraft buyers and what they need to fulfill their mission. You can also talk with some pilot friends. If you already have a mechanic that you trust, it'd be good to get his opinion on airplanes if he's the one that you want to be working on your airplane, or she. I would caution you when you get opinions from anybody else, you know, your pilot friends, mechanics, certainly Facebook and other internets. It's always going to be a biased opinion, right? If you ask me if you should buy a Piper Cub or a Champ, I'm just going to tell you a Champ is just a more comfortable, faster Piper Cub, and it's not even a competition. It's a joke, but there's always going to be those biases. And for example, if you ask me, you're looking for an airplane that you can take your family on some trips, and you want to do this and that, probably by the time you even get past family and trips, I'm going to say just go buy a Cessna 182 and be done with it, because I have a soft spot for the Cessna 182. I think it's a simple airplane that's relatively fast and sturdy, and everybody in the world knows how to work on them. So, yeah, just be aware of biases, and you'll get what you want, but, you know, ask anybody for advice. Most, you know, if I know anything about pilots, they're not afraid to give you an opinion. And lastly, consider oddballs, particularly if you have a lower budget for what your mission would typically require. Oddball airplanes can be a good way to get a lot of performance and a lot of capability for a low price because, for whatever reason, it scares people away. An example would be, you know, a Cessna 175. I owned a Cessna 175 for a while, and it was a fabulous airplane, and you end up having performance somewhere between a 172 and a 182. With a useful load over 1,000 pounds, but it's kind of a goofy oddball airframe. It's kind of a mix of a 172 and a 180 on tall gear, and if it's still got the original engine, it's a geared Continental engine, which is what my airplane had. It always treated me well, but it doesn't come free, right? It is true some of these oddball airplanes might be harder to get parts for, and we do find parts. Those parts might be a little more expensive. It's not always the case, but that airplane, I bought it for far less than I could have bought a 172 for, and I had the performance approaching a 182. So just, you know, it's some things to consider. Another oddball airplane being the Blanca Super Viking and Viking series. Performance that is pretty close or even exceeding Bonanzas and Moonies and Comanches. But people are somewhat afraid of them because they have a wooden wing. So if that's something you're comfortable with and you've got a mechanic that can inspect the airplane and feels confident in it, there's nothing wrong with a wood wing. And you end up with performance of an airplane that matches that of an aircraft that's selling for far more money. So if you're in that situation and your mission and your budget aren't quite aligned, start considering an oddball airplane. Just make sure you have the capability to maintain that oddball airplane, which is the case for really any airplane. Make sure you have the capability to maintain it. So let's go over a sample case. So our sample case again is for 200-pound adults, 150 pounds of baggage. So that's 950 pounds total before I put fuel in the airplane. And enough fuel to go 500 nautical miles at 160 knots. So there's a lot of airplanes that would fit that mission. Most of them would probably be pretty close on weight, so you'd have to just talk to each specific. You have to look at each specific airplane that you're looking at and see what its specific empty weight and useful load is, and do that math. But lots of airplanes would fit that. If we ignore budget, you know, Cirrus SR-22, a Diamond, and then an RV-10, and then of course Comanches, Moonies, Bonanzas, 182 RGs likely would fit the bill. Certainly a Cessna 210, and that even has 6 seats. Saratoga, but that's probably not going to meet the budget that we set at $180,000. So you just start researching all these airplanes, kind of come up with a list of things that might fit your mission. Then start applying your preferences, right? So if I had, in an ideal world, I'd say, you know, insurance is a whole lot cheaper on a fixed gear airplane. Maintenance is about half the cost on a fixed gear airplane. I want to find a fixed gear airplane. So I start looking, and I find that, you know, to get 160 knots or better out of a fixed gear airplane, I need a Cirrus SR-22 or a Diamond or an RV-10. There's just not many of those legacy airplanes that you're going to do 160 knots on with fixed gear. So you go, okay, well, I'm not going to fit my budget with a fixed gear airplane. So what are my other preferences? So if you ask my wife what her preference would be, she'd say, don't even bother with a low wing, I want a high wing airplane. I know my wife, and that's what she would ask for. And with the mission that is our sample mission here, which to be clear, I'm not looking to buy one of these airplanes. I'm really down to 2 possible choices. A Cessna 182RG, if I can find one that has the useful load, or a Cessna 210. That's about the only 2 airplanes that are high wing that fit my mission. So that's what I'll look for when I go shopping, and if I can't find one of those, my runner-up would be a Bonanza. I like the romance of a Bonanza. So, this is part 2. So define your mission in part 1. Part 2, start researching, kind of look at what you like, consider everything, and have a list of 2 or 3 airframes that you're interested in buying. And in part 3, we'll hit the research on barnstormers and trader plane, etc. And we'll talk about things like what to look for on engine time, airframe time, depending on your preferences, paint, interior, avionics, all of that, all those considerations, and logbooks, etc. And try to determine an airplane that is worth spending the somewhat considerable sum of between $500 and $1,500 probably to perform a pre-buy inspection on before committing to purchasing that airplane. Remember, we're talking about spending $180,000 here for an airplane. It's not the time to save money on a pre-buy. So that's part 2. Tune in next week or sometime in the very near future, and we'll talk about part 3 when we search for that airplane. I'm going to keep flying around here, maybe go hit a few local grass strips and head back home. See ya. idle. Still high, so we'll slip it in. Come out of the slip a little bit.